Peugeot isn't stupid. They know, you know, and I know that it feels like everyone wants to buy an SUV. And in the 3008 and 5008, they have some excellent SUVs of their own. But that hasn't stopped them keeping their portfolio diverse by dramatically reinventing the 508 saloon. Peugeot's hoping that some coupe-inspired French design will be enough to tempt buyers away from high-riding SUVs and into this low-slung executive car. It's not such a far-fetched idea. After all, if you cast your mind back, you may remember that cars in this segment, like the Ford Mondeo and Vauxhall Insignia, were all the rage in the UK, proving hugely popular with company car fleets up and down the country. But that was then, and this is now. So does the new Peugeot 508 show that there's still life in the executive car class? Let's find out. And if you've got your eye on a new 508 or any of its rivals, then head to the new car buying section on whatcar.com, where you could save thousands on your next new car. To be a hit with company car drivers, the 508 needs to be comfortable on the many motorway miles that you'll likely be travelling in it. Unfortunately though, this isn't a strong point for the car. It's not uncomfortable, but regardless of your speed, it fidgets more over road imperfections than many of its rivals, even if you have the adaptive suspension set to comfort. But the upside to that slightly firm ride is that the 508 resists body lean well through corners, and it grips well too. The steering isn't as precise as a Mazda 6 or Ford Mondeo's though, so if you meet a twisty bit of road, you'll actually have more fun and feel more confident driving them rather than the 508. As for the engines that are available in the 508, there's 3 diesels and 2 petrols to choose from. The affordable entry-level 1.5 litre diesel actually feels pretty underpowered, so it can mean that overtaking and motorway journeys feel a bit of a strain. If you want more power, there's a 2 litre diesel engine that is available in 2 different states of tune. So whichever you choose, they're reasonably refined and noticeably more powerful, but just bear in mind that they will cost more to buy. Actually though, we'd recommend petrol power in your 508. There's the 179 brake horsepower 1.6 litre PureTech engine, and that is a smooth, responsive engine that feels much more zingy than the diesels, but it doesn't quite have the low-end pulling power that you can get with the diesel engines. If you do want a bit of extra oomph, there's a 221 brake horsepower version of the same engine, and that offers noticeably more performance. But for private buyers, we'd recommend sticking with the lower powered version of that engine, because it's still a fine performer and it offers better value. An 8-speed automatic gearbox is standard on all but the entry-level 1.5 litre diesel, which gets a 6-speed manual gearbox. The auto can be hesitant around town, but is otherwise impressively smooth and quick in its shifts. We'd avoid the manual because of its long, notchy throw. We are big fans of Peugeot's latest era of interior designs that feature in the 3008 and 5008 SUVs, and in the 508 it gets a similar i-cockpit layout. It definitely impresses with its design, especially because lots of its rivals are functional but, quite frankly, a bit boring by comparison. And actually, interior quality impresses as well. There's lots of soft touch plastics around, and the only thing that lets the side down a bit is this cheap feeling plastic on the door here. But a bigger problem for the 508 is that this small steering wheel, which looks kind of cool and a bit quirky and is different, actually blocks your view of some of the dials on this 12.3-inch driver display. And actually the only way to get around it is to put the steering wheel lower than you'd have it normally. Another problem is visibility in the 508. These pillars here are really thick and can obscure your view out at some junctions, and the rear screen and the side windows are really small as well. But the good thing is you get parking sensors as standard on entry-level models, and if you go up one trim to Allure, you get front sensors and a reversing camera thrown in as well. And if you go for Allure trim, you get a bigger 10-inch touchscreen infotainment display. All models get an 8-inch screen as standard. Unfortunately though, regardless of the size, it's not a particularly good system to use. That's because it's laggy to respond to your touches, and the menus are kind of confusingly laid out. What is good though, is that you get sat-nav, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard. Back here, there's enough legroom for a 6-footer to fold their legs in behind a lanky driver, but the rear headroom is so limited that you're only going to be comfortable on long journeys if you're a child or shorter adult. You'd definitely be more comfortable in the Skoda Superb. The boot's also on the small side compared to its executive car rivals, offering less room than a Mazda 6 and a lot less room than the cavernous Skoda Superb. At least the 508 does get a large boot opening, which will help load in bulky items, and you can fold down the rear seats in a 60/40 split folding configuration by pulling these toggles just behind the headrests. But as you can see, the seats don't lie completely flat. The 508 starting price puts it right in Skoda Superb and Ford Mondeo territory, with top-end models getting close to the Kia Stinger and the Volkswagen Arteon. So in short, it's not exactly a bargain. And if you're buying on a PCP monthly finance deal, then things don't get much better either, with high monthly costs making the 508 not look quite so tempting as better value rivals. But if you're buying it as a company car, that's where the Peugeot 508 can make some sense, because the 1.5 litre diesel offers low CO2 emissions and very impressive fuel economy, and you'll be paying less in benefit and kind tax than an equivalent Skoda Superb or Mazda 6. It's a safe car too, with automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assist and blind spot monitoring as standard. As for trim levels, we'd stick with Allure, which is the second on the ladder and represents the best value for money, bringing that bigger touchscreen, parking sensors and a reversing camera. There's no doubt that there's life yet in the executive car class. Unfortunately though, the Peugeot 508 isn't the best demonstration of that. It's stylish, sure, and it can be a cheap company car, but in terms of driving and practicality, there are much better examples in the class, like the Skoda Superb and the Mazda 6. For more information on the Peugeot 508, including our full review of it and all of its key rivals, head to whatcar.com. And while you're there, check out the new car buying section to see how much you could save on your next new car. Remember, it could be thousands. But before you do any of that, click subscribe and never miss a What Car video again.